The moment your eyes open, the trajectory of your day begins. Not with your calendar, not with your to-do list, but with your very first thought. That initial mental command, spoken or unspoken, sets the tone for everything that follows. Before your feet even touch the floor, you're already headed in one direction or another. Most people miss this. They wake up and hand over control to their phones, their inbox, yesterday's stress, and wonder why the day slips through their fingers. But the highest achievers do something different. They lead themselves before the world has a chance to influence them. They don't wait for clarity, they create it. Power begins the second you regain consciousness, and what you tell yourself in that moment will shape your performance, your focus, your attitude, and ultimately, your results. For most people, the answer is never. They let their minds drift. They wake up and immediately allow stress, memories of yesterday, or the demands of the world to dictate their emotional and mental direction, and then they wonder why the day seems to control them rather than the other way around. Your life is not shaped by what happens to you. It's shaped by how you respond. And your response begins with what you say to yourself when the world is still quiet, when nothing has yet demanded your attention. I learned this lesson through experience. There was a time in my life when I woke up feeling behind. My mornings were chaotic. My mind instantly filled with deadlines, problems, and worries. Before I'd even had my first sip of water, I'd already played out 10 worst-case scenarios in my mind. By noon, I was mentally and emotionally exhausted. Then something shifted. I discovered a truth that changed everything. I was operating on default. I had built no intentional structure around my thoughts. I was letting old patterns and random emotions steer the course of my life. The first real breakthrough came when I made a simple but powerful decision to take ownership of my mornings. Today, I want to share with you 5 morning declarations that changed the course of my life. These are not vague affirmations or wishful phrases. They are specific, actionable mental commitments that have helped me lead with clarity, purpose, and power. But before we dive into the first declaration, I want you to understand something important. This is not about pretending that challenges don't exist. It's not about ignoring problems or denying reality. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's about preparing yourself to face reality with strength, with focus, and with emotional resilience. It's about putting yourself in a mental position of leadership because every great achievement starts there. Let's begin with the very first declaration. It's simple, it's powerful, and it will change the way you show up, not just today, but every day, moving forward. I own this day. Not I hope today goes well. Not let's see what happens. No, you say I own this day. When you say I own this day, something shifts inside you. You stop being a passive participant in your own life and step into the role of leader, of decision maker, of creator. Ownership changes everything. When something belongs to you, you treat it differently. You take care of it, you plan for it, you defend its value. You don't hand it over to chance or to other people's priorities. You protect it because you know its worth. And here's the reality. Each day comes with a fixed deposit of 86,400 seconds. No more, no less. That's your allocation. Same as anyone else on this planet, regardless of wealth, background, or opportunity. But here's what makes the difference. Some people invest those seconds with intention. Others let them evaporate. Have you ever heard someone say, I just don't have time, or where did the day go, or I'm always behind? These are not time problems. These are ownership problems. They speak like victims of time rather than masters of it, as if time were an uncontrollable force, constantly slipping away rather than a resource that can be managed, directed, and invested. Contrast that with those who take full ownership of their day. They don't have more hours than you, but they have more clarity. They make decisions. They prioritize. They operate from intention rather than reaction. I once spoke with a single mother of 3. She worked 2 jobs and was finishing her college degree. I asked her how she kept it all together. Her answer stuck with me. She said, "Every morning, before I do anything, I tell myself, this day is mine. It doesn't belong to my job. It doesn't belong to my kids. It doesn't belong to my professors. It's mine, and I choose to share it with them." But I start with ownership. That's leadership. That's power. That's the mindset of someone who refuses to be a victim of circumstance. When you start your morning by saying, "I own this day," 3 powerful things happen. First, you position yourself as the one in control. You become the initiator, not the responder. Second, you establish a sense of responsibility. You understand that the results of this day, your productivity, your attitude, your interactions are primarily determined. Third, you set a tone of intentionality. You are not simply reacting to what happens. You are choosing what happens, at least to the degree that you can. Now, ownership is not about control in the sense of rigidity. It's not about pretending you can predict every outcome. It's about stewardship. It's about recognizing that this day is both a gift and a resource, one that you've been entrusted with, and how you use it will determine what you get in return. I want you to try something tomorrow morning. Before you check your phone, before you turn on the TV, before you even speak, take one breath, close your eyes, and declare, "I own this day." Say it with purpose. Say it with strength. And then notice what happens. Notice how your posture changes. Notice how your energy shifts. You're no longer drifting, you're driving. That's not wishful thinking, that's strategic positioning. You are placing yourself at the cause, not the effect of the day ahead. Of course, saying, "I own this day" is only the beginning. Ownership without action is just a hollow phrase. If you truly believe the day belongs to you, then every choice you make must reflect that belief. Ownership means responsibility. It means making deliberate decisions about how you invest your time, where you place your focus, how you manage your energy, and how you respond to whatever challenges arise. There's a principle I've taught for decades: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies your power to choose. And in that choice lies your growth, your freedom, and your effectiveness. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you own your response. When a meeting goes off the rails, you own your mindset. When a client cancels or a project fails, you own the way you extract learning from it and decide what happens next. This is not easy. It demands that you stop blaming external factors. It requires a level of honesty with yourself that most people are not willing to engage in. But when you do, you take back a kind of power that few ever access. Ownership means looking in the mirror and saying, "This is my life, this is my day, and I'm responsible for what I do with it." And here's what happens when you truly embrace that first declaration. You stop being a passenger and you become the driver. You stop waiting for ideal conditions and you start creating results with what you have. You stop hoping life will get better and you start making it better day by day, moment by moment. That's the difference between high performers and everyone else. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not resources. It's ownership. Successful people own their time, their priorities, their progress. They don't rent their days from circumstance. They don't lease their effort based on how they feel. They operate as full owners every single morning. So tomorrow, before anything else, before the world speaks to you, before anyone asks for your time or attention, say it with clarity and strength. "I own this day." Then live like you mean it. Now, the second declaration builds directly on the first. Because once you own the day, you're going to confront something inevitable: discomfort, challenge, resistance. That brings us to the next essential morning declaration. I embrace the discomfort of growth. Let's be honest, growth is not easy. It never has been. It never will be. And that's exactly why most people avoid it. Growth is uncomfortable. Learning is uncomfortable. Discipline is uncomfortable. But you cannot create a better life while staying in the same place. And you cannot improve anything without facing some level of resistance. If you're waiting for the right moment, when change feels convenient, when improvement feels easy, you'll be waiting forever. That moment doesn't exist. Most people misunderstand what comfort really is. They treat it as the goal. But comfort is not your goal. It's your enemy if you're serious about achieving your potential. Look around you. Nothing in nature grows in comfort. Seeds must break through soil. Muscles grow only after stress and tension. The butterfly emerges only after a complete transformation that first looks like destruction. Yet somehow, we believe we should evolve without discomfort. That's not how it works. And deep down, you know it. Think back to any meaningful progress you've ever made in your life. Did it happen when everything was comfortable? Or did it happen when you stretched beyond what was familiar, when you felt uncertain, exposed, maybe even afraid? The answer is obvious. Growth only happens when you're willing to lean into discomfort. Let me give you a perfect metaphor. The gym. When you train your muscles, growth occurs not during rest, but when the fibers are broken down, micro tears caused by resistance. Then through recovery, they rebuild stronger than before. No resistance, no growth. That's not just biology. It's a universal principle. The same applies to your mind, your habits, your discipline, your leadership, your relationships, every area of your life. And that's why every morning you must remind yourself, I embrace the discomfort of growth. This isn't just a phrase. It's a mental commitment. It's a way of shifting your internal response to challenge. Instead of resisting it, you welcome it, not because it's easy, but because it's essential. I once worked with a client who told me that every morning he would look in the mirror and ask himself, what's going to make me uncomfortable today? Not because he enjoyed pain, but because he understood that discomfort was a signpost. It meant he was headed in the right direction toward growth, not stagnation. When you make this declaration each morning, your behavior changes. When the alarm goes off early and your bed feels like the safest place in the world, you get up not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. When you look at your to-do list and see the one task you've been avoiding, you tackle it, not because you want to, but because that discomfort holds the key to your progress. When you face a conversation that you've been putting off, one that requires honesty, vulnerability, or accountability, you initiate it knowing that real connection and leadership only come through courage. Let me be clear, embracing discomfort does not mean chasing pain. This is not about suffering for the sake of suffering. It's about choosing purposeful discomfort over meaningless comfort. It's the discomfort that comes from pushing yourself to the next level. It's the discomfort that precedes breakthrough. It's the discomfort that says, I'm not done growing yet. Too many people avoid the discomfort that could change everything. They stay in jobs they dislike for years, sometimes decades, because the discomfort of change seems greater than the discomfort of staying stuck. They stay in relationships that drain them because starting over feels too uncertain. They let go of dreams because those dreams require discipline, patience, and challenge. But here's the truth. The pain of growth is temporary. The pain of regret lasts a lifetime. And here's another truth. Discomfort never goes away. You just learn how to face it differently. You stop fearing it. You start using it. When you train your mind to expect it, to lean into it, and to see it as a signal, not a warning, but a welcome, you become unstoppable. So tomorrow morning, after you've reminded yourself that you own the day, follow it immediately with this. I embrace the discomfort of growth. Say it like you mean it. And then take action that reflects that belief. Because every time you stretch beyond your current self, you move closer to the person you're capable of becoming. When you consistently tell yourself, I embrace the discomfort of growth, and you begin to act in alignment with that principle, something powerful happens. You rewire your relationship with resistance. What once felt like a signal to retreat now becomes a cue to advance. You stop interpreting fear or tension as signs that you're on the wrong path. You start recognizing them as indicators that you're doing something meaningful, something that has the potential to elevate your life. I'm reminded of a woman who attended one of my seminars. She was in her 60s and had just launched a technology company in an industry where she had zero previous experience. She was often the oldest person in the room by 30 years. When I asked her how she managed the discomfort of learning new systems, facing skepticism, and competing with people half her age, she smiled and said, "Every morning I remind myself, today will be uncomfortable, and that's how I know I'm still growing." That kind of mindset is rare, but it's available to anyone who decides to adopt it. You see, discomfort is not a wall, it's a doorway. Most people stop at that door. High performers walk through it. Now, once you've grounded your morning in ownership and a commitment to growth, there's a third declaration that brings focus and calm into your daily routine. It addresses one of the most common and most destructive mental habits, wasting energy on things you cannot control. So here's your third declaration. I focus on what I can control. This single idea has saved people from stress, burnout, frustration, and wasted effort. It has restored peace of mind to individuals who were drowning in worry. It has brought clarity to leaders overwhelmed by external chaos. And it can do the same for you. We live in a complex, unpredictable world. There will always be news, situations, and outcomes that affect us, but fall completely outside our influence. The economy, global events, other people's decisions, public policies, the past, these are all things that we cannot change. And yet, many people spend the bulk of their emotional energy thinking, worrying, or reacting to things they have zero control over. There's a fundamental law of personal effectiveness you must remember. Your power is directly related to where you place your focus. If you place it on things you can't influence, you diminish your strength. If you place it on what you can control, you amplify it. Think of your life like a garden. A skilled gardener doesn't complain about the rain or obsess over tomorrow's temperature. They focus on what they can control, preparing the soil, planting the seeds, watering consistently, protecting the roots. Your life requires the same kind of disciplined attention. And it starts each morning by committing to that principle. I focus on what I can control. When you begin your day with the mindset, I focus on what I can control, you equip yourself with one of the most valuable tools of high performance, emotional discipline. You stop fighting battles that can't be won, and you start winning the battles that matter. I once coached an executive who was overwhelmed by anxiety. Every morning, he would check market news, economic forecasts, competitor updates, trying to predict what might go wrong. By the time he arrived at the office, he was already mentally depleted, reacting to forces far beyond his influence. I challenged him to make one change. Each morning, before checking any outside information, he would write down a list of what he could directly control that day. His attitude, his priorities, his communication, his preparation, his focus. Then, he committed to directing 80% of his energy toward those items. The result? His performance skyrocketed. His stress dropped. His confidence returned. Why? Because he stopped trying to manage the uncontrollable and started mastering the controllable. To apply this principle in your own life, it helps to visualize your experience as 3 concentric circles. The first circle contains what you can directly control: your thoughts, your words, your decisions, your actions, your responses, your effort, your schedule. The second circle includes what you can influence but not control: the behavior of your team, your clients, your family, the success of a project, or the energy of a room. The third circle is everything you can neither control nor influence: the news, the economy, other people's choices, the weather, the past. If you spend your energy in the outer circle, you will feel powerless. If you invest it in the first and second, your power will grow. This declaration, I focus on what I can control, is a mental filter. It stops you from wasting precious energy. It helps you ask better questions, When things go wrong, instead of spiraling, you ask, what part of this can I impact today? When someone is unkind or uncooperative, you ask, how can I respond with intention rather than emotion? When circumstances feel overwhelming, you break them down. What is one small, useful action I can take right now? I remember meeting a woman who had lost everything in a natural disaster. Her home, her business, her sense of security. I asked her how she found the strength to rebuild. She said, every morning I ask myself, what's one thing I can control today? Some days it was just her mindset. Other days it was a single phone call. But day by day she rebuilt her life, not by focusing on the devastation, but by directing her attention toward the next possible step. That's the power of this declaration. It doesn't deny challenges, it refines them. It brings them into a scope where action is possible. Because effectiveness is never about controlling everything. It's about mastering what matters most, your response. Now, let me make something absolutely clear. Focusing on what you can control does not mean you become indifferent to the world. It doesn't mean you ignore problems, avoid responsibility, or stop caring about the big picture. It means you approach those problems with strategy, not stress. The most effective leaders, the most successful entrepreneurs, and the most impactful change makers throughout history all shared this mindset. They didn't waste energy screaming at the sky. They identified exactly where their influence could be applied, and they concentrated their efforts there. So tomorrow morning, after you've declared ownership of the day and embraced the discomfort of growth, make this third statement part of your routine. I focus on what I can control. Say it with conviction. Then use it to filter your actions. You'll find your effectiveness begins to multiply while your frustration steadily diminishes. Why? Because when you stop trying to push against walls that won't move, you start finding the doors that were there all along. Now we come to the fourth morning declaration, one that goes completely against the culture of immediate gratification. It challenges you to flip the common equation that governs most people's thinking. The next declaration is this: I deliver value before I expect return. This mindset has changed more careers, built more relationships, and created more wealth than almost anything else I've taught in over 4 decades. Unfortunately, most people get this backwards. They walk into every situation thinking, what can I get out of this? What's in it for me? Why haven't I been rewarded yet? But here's the truth. Value always precedes reward. In business and relationships and life, contribution always comes before compensation. It's a principle as old as time. You plant before you harvest. You build before you sell. You give before you receive. Yet most people demand to reap before they've sown anything of substance. They're waiting for the promotion before taking initiative. They're waiting for the praise before going the extra mile. They're waiting for love before giving it freely. That's not how excellence works. And that's not how success is created. I once mentored a young man who was frustrated that he hadn't been promoted. He said he was doing everything right, but nobody noticed. I asked him a simple question. What problems have you solved lately that weren't your responsibility? He was silent. Then I gave him a challenge. For 90 days, focus on delivering unexpected value. Look for ways to help others. Make someone's job easier. Improve something you weren't asked to touch. Add value even when it goes unseen. Within 6 months, he was promoted twice. Why? Because value doesn't stay invisible forever. The world eventually rewards the people who make themselves indispensable. When you begin each morning with the intention to give before expecting to receive, everything changes. Your mindset shifts from entitlement to contribution. Your energy moves from waiting to creating, and that's when the real transformation begins. This fourth declaration, I deliver value before I expect return, will change how you show up in every area of your life. In your work, it means consistently doing more than what's expected, not to burn yourself out, But to elevate your standard, it means becoming the kind of person who is impossible to overlook, because you make things better wherever you go. In your relationships, it means leading with generosity, empathy, and understanding, not to manipulate, but because you recognize that strong connections are built by those who invest first. In your personal development, it means putting in the time, energy, and effort to grow, not waiting for someone else to fix you, validate you, or give you permission to move forward. This principle applies to every part of life. And here's what's fascinating. The people who live by this idea rarely have to chase rewards. The rewards find them. Because in any field, whether it's business, education, service, or art, the people who thrive are the ones who focus relentlessly on one thing: delivering value. I once asked the founder of a multi-million-dollar company what his number one business philosophy was. He didn't hesitate. He said, "We don't talk about how to increase profits, we obsess over how to increase value for our customers. The profits follow." And that principle doesn't just apply to products. It applies to people. Think of the people in your life that you admire the most. Chances are they're the ones who consistently give more than they take. They're the ones who show up prepared. The ones who ask how they can help. The ones who take initiative, solve problems, and go the extra mile even when no one's watching. Those people are magnets for opportunity. Now, let's clarify one thing. Delivering value first doesn't mean being a martyr. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of you or ignoring your own needs. It means understanding the sequence. Contribute first, then collect. Plant, then harvest. Give, then receive. When you reverse that order, when you expect to receive before contributing, you create resistance. You close doors. You push people away. You create an energy of scarcity and desperation. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who clearly wanted something from you before offering anything of value? A salesperson who pitched you without knowing your needs? A coworker who wanted credit before putting in the effort? Compare that to someone who enters the room asking, "How can I support you today?" Or, "What can I take off your plate?" Your posture shifts, your guard drops, you pay attention. That's the power of value-first thinking. It opens minds. It builds trust. It moves things forward. So tomorrow morning, after you've declared ownership of your day, embrace the discomfort of growth and focused on what you can control. Add this: I deliver value before I expect return. And then live it. Watch how your influence grows, how doors open, how the right people and opportunities begin to find their way to you, not because you demanded more, but because you became more. Now we arrive at the fifth and final declaration, the one that brings balance, perspective, and emotional alignment to everything else. It's this: I am grateful for what is, while working toward what could be. This is the declaration that creates harmony between appreciation and ambition, between present peace and future progress. Most people struggle with this balance. They fall into one of two traps. The first is chronic dissatisfaction, the belief that nothing is ever enough, that happiness is always one milestone away. These individuals are constantly chasing the next level, the next goal, the next reward, but never stop to appreciate how far they've come. The second is complacency, a passive acceptance of the present that dulls motivation and weakens drive. These individuals convince themselves that growth is no longer necessary, that striving is somehow a rejection of gratitude. Both approaches are limiting. Both rob you of your potential. The solution is not to choose between gratitude and ambition. The solution is to hold both. To say, I am deeply thankful for where I am, and I am committed to becoming more. When you begin your day with this mindset, you create a foundation of stability. You reduce stress, increase focus, and activate both humility and hunger, the two qualities every great achiever possesses. I once coached an entrepreneur whose company had hit multiple revenue goals, expanded internationally, and built a strong team. And yet, he was miserable. Not because things were bad, but because his mind was always fixated on what wasn't done yet. His staff felt unappreciated. He was burned out. The joy of building something meaningful had been lost in a haze of pressure. So I gave him a simple exercise. Each morning, write down 3 things you are grateful for in your current business. Then identify one area you are committed to improving, not out of anxiety, but from a place of creative focus. The results were immediate. He began to see his team differently. His communication improved. His own energy returned. Why? Because he wasn't rejecting the present. He was building from it. This 5th declaration grounds you emotionally while still driving you forward. It allows you to enjoy the process instead of postponing joy for an imaginary finish line. It applies to every area of your life. In your personal growth, it means acknowledging your current strength while committing to new levels of discipline or skill. In your relationships, it means valuing the people around you for who they are today while encouraging growth and connection tomorrow. In your health, it means being thankful for the body you have while taking responsibility for making it stronger and more energized. The best version of you lives at the intersection of gratitude and aspiration. So tomorrow morning, after the first 4 declarations, take a moment to breathe, reflect, and say this with presence: I am grateful for what is, while working toward what could be. And then let that perspective shape every choice you make. Because when you're thankful for today and committed to tomorrow, you become a force that moves through life with purpose, peace, and unstoppable momentum. These 5 morning declarations, when practiced consistently, will reshape the way you experience your life. Not just how you feel, but how you perform, how you grow, and what you ultimately achieve. Let's review them. I own this day. This places you in the driver's seat. You're not a victim of circumstance. You are the architect of your time, your choices, and your results. I embrace the discomfort of growth. This reframes resistance as the path to progress. You stop avoiding challenge, and you start seeking it because you understand that discomfort is the price of becoming more. I focus on what I can control. This frees you from the chaos of the world and centers your energy on what truly matters: your mindset, your behavior, your attitude, and your habits. I deliver value before I expect return. This positions you as a leader, a creator, a contributor. You build trust, open doors, and attract opportunities. Not by demanding more, but by becoming more. I am grateful for what is while working toward what could be. This keeps you grounded and driven. You find joy in the present while remaining committed to the future you're building. These aren't just words. They're not empty affirmations or motivational slogans. They are positioning statements, mental frameworks that determine how you think, feel, and act from the very beginning of your day. But here's the key. They only work if you do. It's not the knowledge of these declarations that changes your life. It's the daily application. It's saying them with intention, feeling them in your body, acting in alignment with them. This is where most people fall short. They consume information. They feel inspired. They nod in agreement. And then they continue living the same way. But you have the opportunity to be different. You can be one of the few who don't just hear truth, but live it. So I challenge you, starting tomorrow morning, before the world gets to you, before the distractions begin, speak these 5 declarations to yourself. Say them out loud if you can. Say them with certainty, with focus, with power. Don't just repeat the words. Live them. Make decisions based on them. Let them shape your responses, your priorities, your presence. And watch what happens, not just over the next few days, but over the next few months, the next year, the next phase of your life. Because change doesn't begin with perfect circumstances. It doesn't require ideal timing. It doesn't need anyone else's permission. Change begins with a choice, a decision, a moment of clarity followed by consistent action. And that moment is available to you every single morning. So tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, give yourself the gift of these declarations. Because the extraordinary life you want is not created by luck, talent, or even opportunity. It's created by how you think when the world is quiet and your mind is clear. It's created by what you say to yourself before the day begins. The purpose. These aren't just words. They're not empty affirmations or motivational slogans. They are positioning statements, mental frameworks that determine how you think, feel, and act from the very beginning of your day. But here's the key, they only work if you do. It's not the knowledge of these declarations that changes your life. It's the daily application. It's saying them with intention, feeling them in your body, acting in alignment with them. This is where most people fall short. They consume information, they feel inspired, they nod in agreement, and then they continue living the same way. But you have the opportunity to be different. You can be one of the few who don't just hear truth, but live it. So I challenge you, starting tomorrow morning, before the world gets to you, before the distractions begin, speak these 5 declarations to yourself. Say them out loud if you can. Say them with certainty, with focus, with power. Don't just repeat the words. Live them. Make decisions based on them. Let them shape your responses, your priorities, your presence. And watch what happens, not just over the next few days, but over the next few months, the next year, the next phase of your life. Because change doesn't begin with perfect circumstances. It doesn't require ideal timing. It doesn't need anyone else's permission. Change begins with a choice, a decision, a moment of clarity followed by consistent action. And that moment is available to you every single morning. So tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, give yourself the gift of these declarations, because the extraordinary life you want is not created by luck, talent, or even opportunity. It's created by how you think when the world is quiet and your mind is clear. It's created by what you say to yourself before the day begins.